From our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Zahra Syed. Our top story tonight. Israel has bombed 200 locations in Gaza, killing at least 100 Palestinians. It resumed its military offensive in Gaza on Friday morning, mere minutes after the official expiration of a fragile 7-day truce with Hamas. Director General of the International Committee of the Red Cross, Robert Mardini, says the renewed bombing has plunged the people of Gaza back into the nightmarish conditions. The Financial Times reported on Friday that the Israeli government is preparing for a protracted conflict that may last a year or even more. It anticipates that the most intense phase of the ground offensive will continue well into early 2024. The human cost of this ongoing conflict is staggering, with more than 15,000 Palestinians having lost their lives in Gaza since October 7th. In Israel, the official death toll stands at approximately 1,200. Close to 1 million Americans have signed petitions demanding that President Joe Biden and Congress actively work towards achieving a lasting ceasefire in Gaza. The petitions were initiated by various civil society organizations, including Amnesty International, Avaz, Move On, and Oxfam America. The groups presented these petition signatures at the White House this week as Israel resumed its bombing of Gaza after a truce expired on Friday morning. The campaigners stressed that only a negotiated ceasefire can address the humanitarian crisis, secure the release of prisoners, and work towards a long-term resolution for the conflict. Petitioners emphasized the need to end collective punishment, release prisoners, and allow humanitarian aid. This signifies a growing groundswell of support across the United States for an immediate ceasefire, emphasizing the urgency of ending the conflict and the blockade of Gaza. The U.S. provides significant military aid to Israel, to the tune of over $3 billion annually, as well as recent approval for an additional $14 billion. President Biden has also expressed unwavering support for Israel, in addition to the financial package since October 7th. In a series of high-level meetings, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken called on Israel to quell tensions in the West Bank. He also demanded immediate action against Israeli settler extremists responsible for attacks on Palestinian civilians. During discussions with Israeli President Isaac Herzog, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and Israel's war cabinet, Blinken underscored the pressing need for accountability. He reaffirmed the U.S. commitment to a peaceful Palestinian state alongside Israel, emphasizing both freedom and security. Blinken also urged Israel to prioritize humanitarian and civilian protection while considering military operations in southern Gaza. In related news, diplomatic tensions have arisen as Israel has summoned Spain's ambassador. This is in response to doubts expressed by Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez regarding Israel's compliance with international humanitarian law in Gaza. The Netherlands-based Muslim Rights Monitoring Group has filed a complaint against the caretaker government of Prime Minister Mark Rutte and 2 ministers. This was in response to the government selling spare parts for F-35 jets to Israel, despite warnings leading to possible complicity in war crimes. A statement emphasizes that any kind of arms supply to Israel or the passing on of intelligence information carries the risk that the Netherlands is complicit in Israel's war crimes. Lawyer Reinout Sterk, who is a member of the legal delegation representing the group, told Anadolu News Agency that the other officials named in the complaint are Foreign Minister Henk Bruns-Slot and Foreign Trade Minister Liaji Schrijnemacher. MSNBC has canceled the Mehdi Hasan show. The network had hosted the weekend show since 2020. Hasan gained a strong following for his confrontational interviews, which frequently went viral. More recently, he had been focusing on the conditions Palestinians in Gaza faced, which challenged Israeli officials on misleading information. In one interview, Hasan's questioning prompted an Israeli government advisor to acknowledge possible mistakes in disseminating such information. 1,300 artists join Olivia Colman assailing cultural institutions of suppressing Palestine. Details come after the break. Stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Over 1,300 artists, including renowned actress Olivia Colman, have condemned Western cultural institutions for suppressing Palestinian voices and perspectives. The artists expressed concern over the glaring double standard in extending solidarity to other oppressed communities while ignoring Palestinians facing grave human rights violations. In a letter, they cited instances of censorship. This includes such as Listen Gallery postponing Ai Weiwei's exhibition and Hollywood producers dropping actress Melissa Barrero. These have been attributed to artists' pro-Palestinian comments unrelated to their professional work. The signatories emphasize that freedom of expression, a cornerstone of democracy, is under threat. They call on arts organizations to support a permanent ceasefire and stand by artists advocating for Palestinian rights. The letter echoes global action signaling a growing movement against censorship and in support of Palestinian liberation. The families of over 3,000 Syrian civilians killed in US-led coalition attacks from 2014 to 2020 are demanding accountability and compensation for their losses. According to data compiled by Anadolu news agencies, these civilians were caught in the crossfire during operations against ISIS. The grieving families are united in their call for accountability, urging the US to be held responsible for the devastation caused by the coalition attacks. They are seeking justice through the court system and demanding compensation for their immense losses. An appeals court in New York has reinstated a gag order that prevents Donald Trump and his lawyers from making comments about court personnel during his ongoing civil fraud trial. This is after Trump's repeated disparagement of law clerk Allison Greenfield. Judge Arthur N. Goron initially imposed the restriction on October 3rd. He now intends to enforce it rigorously. The court argued that the restriction was necessary to protect court staff from threats and harassment. The lawsuit was brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James. It alleges that Trump inflated his wealth on financial statements to secure loans and make deals. Trump, who views it as a political attack, denies any wrongdoing. Trump will testify on December 11th, and the trial's verdict is expected by the end of January. An appeals court has ruled that former President Donald Trump is not immune from lawsuits related to the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. The three-judge panel determined that while presidents have protection from civil liabilities while carrying out official duties, this immunity does not extend when they are not acting in an official capacity. The court was asked to decide whether Trump's false claims of election fraud and calls for his supporters to gather at the Capitol and fight like hell were outside his presidential responsibilities. The panel unanimously affirmed that these actions were part of Trump's campaign to win the re-election, not official presidential acts. Sandra Day O'Connor, the trailblazing first woman to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court, has died in Phoenix, Arizona. She was 93. Her death was attributed to complications stemming from advanced dementia, likely Alzheimer's disease, along with respiratory issues. Appointed by President Ronald Reagan in 1981, O'Connor held the role for over 24 years before retiring in 2006. Chief Justice John Roberts praised her as a fiercely independent defender of the rule of law and a proponent of civics education. Throughout her career, O'Connor played pivotal roles in significant cases, casting a deciding vote in the contentious Bush versus Gore case in 2000, which ultimately led to George Washington Bush becoming president. Congress has voted decisively to expel New York Republican Representative George Santos after a 311 to 114 vote. He is now one of only 6 lawmakers ever expelled from the House. This follows a recent House Ethics Committee report. It cited substantial evidence of ethics violations by Santos. These include fraudulent claims about his background and multiple federal charges related to campaign fund misuse. New York Governor Kathy Hochul, who now has the responsibility of scheduling a special election to fill the vacant seat within 70 to 80 days. Henry Kissinger, who passed away at the age of 100, leaves behind a complex legacy. Many consider him a war criminal, even as others celebrate his legacy in shaping key events in history. Kissinger served in the United States government during the Nixon and Ford administrations, influencing Middle East policy. He notably obstructed peace efforts in the Middle East, preventing potential Soviet-US collaboration and advocating for an extended Israeli occupation. In 1973, the Arab-Israeli War erupted, with Kissinger's involvement in providing military aid to Israel. He aimed to let Israel come out ahead but bleed, impacting the conflict's toll on lives. Kissinger's involvement in other global affairs includes supporting the 1973 Pinochet coup in Chile, the South African apartheid regime, and allegedly influencing Israel's nuclear capabilities. He also reportedly threatened Pakistan's Zulfikar Ali Bhutto regarding their nuclear program. While Kissinger is lauded for his role in opening the US-China relations, his legacy remains divisive, with some considering him a war criminal. His global influence and controversial actions continue to spark debate and scrutiny. In death, Kissinger's complex legacy raises questions about the impact of his decisions on international relations and peace efforts. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.